Good evening. Welcome to Northbeat. I'm Megan Roberts. We begin tonight in the Yukon, where the community of Old Crow is searching for one of its own. Gwich'in elder Freddie Frost hasn't been seen since Tuesday, October 10th. That's when the 78-year-old was spotted heading up the road to Crow Mountain on a red ATV. Frost is an experienced hunter and outdoorsman, but when he wasn't back by Saturday, the community called the police and launched a search party. The Gwich'in First Nation government, the RCMP, and Yukon Search and Rescue are all searching on land and from the air for any sign of him. But heavy snow on the mountain has posed a problem. The search was actually put on hold Sunday because of it. The RCMP wants anyone with information on where Frost may be to contact the Old Crow Detachment. This summer's wildfires devastated forests across the southern Northwest Territories, which could have a serious impact on trapping and hunting in the area. Fires burned up the habitat of animals like wolves, rabbits, marten, and lynx. Nathan Kogiak has been trapping those animals for years around Yellowknife, and he says this year will be different. Loss of habitat means more predators being pushed into remaining areas of forest, putting strain on the prey that live there. That's making him rethink which animals he traps this year.
You got to kind of weigh, like, hey, is this going to put a burden on all the lynx in the area who are going after, grouse, ptarmigan? Obviously, their main source is rabbit. Like, do you want to put that much pressure on their prey?
This winter, he's looking at trapping animals that otherwise might starve due to a lack of food. He says he's going to be focusing on trapping beavers. The federal court is in Iqaluit this week, hearing a lawsuit launched by Nunavut Tungavik and the Kikitani Inuit Association. They're fighting the federal government over its handling of fishing licenses in Nunavut. Emma Tranter has that story.
The lawsuit alleges that the former Minister of Fisheries and Oceans, Bernadette Jordan, didn't consider the rights of Nunavut Inuit to have access to fisheries when she transferred licenses off the territory's coast to a Mi'kmaq coalition that purchased Clearwater Foods in 2021. The lawsuit asks the courts to quash the decision and revisit how fishing licenses are distributed in Nunavut. The lawsuit also says both NTI and QIA raised the issue with Jordan, but did not receive a response. Lawyers for NTI made submissions on Monday. The case will continue in Iqaluit on Tuesday with submissions from the Government of Canada. Emma Tranter, CBC News, Iqaluit.
The Nunavut Employees Union has filed a complaint with the Canada Industrial Relations Board against the Coral Harbour Housing Authority. The union says the authority has committed an illegal lockout in violation of the Canada Labour Code, something the Housing Authority manager denies. The union alleges that the Housing Authority took steps to lay off its NEU-represented casual workers following a strike vote, and that they've been told more layoffs could be coming.
We don't know why, when we're trying to negotiate with NHC-sponsored housing authorities, there's threats at the bargaining table. It doesn't make any sense. Bullying and intimidation is not a path forward to getting deals and respecting workers and local workers in small communities.
The Housing Authority says it will be opposing the complaint at the Canada Industrial Relations Board. It's not yet clear when the complaint may be heard. Rashawn says the group is willing to strike but would prefer to reach a deal. He says that wages are a clear issue for the bargaining workers. Yellowknife RCMP are searching for witnesses to a possible homicide that happened Sunday morning. Police say they were called to a home on 47th Street to help EMS and were told a man at the scene had been seriously injured. The man was taken to the hospital but died. Police say they're investigating it as a homicide. They say the investigation is still in its early stages and they're not releasing the identity of the victim. A former educational assistant at Hidden Valley Elementary School in Whitehorse has been found not guilty of sexual abuse charges. William Auclair Belmar stood trial earlier this year on one count each of invitation to sexual touching, sexual assault, and forcible confinement. The case hinged on the testimony of the complainant, who is still a child. They were a student in Auclair Belmar's classroom. Judge Peter Chisholm said the child was sincere on the witness stand, but gaps in their memory and contradicting statements left a reasonable doubt. Eau Claire Belmar did not respond when asked for comment after the verdict. A warning about this next story. It deals with reports of sexual assault. A teenager says she was groped by a stranger sitting next to her on a flight, and Air Transat didn't do enough to help her. Instead, the teen and her mom say the airline blocked their efforts to get answers. CBC News is not identifying the teen or her mother, since the girl is a complainant of sexual assault. Here's Rosa Marcatelli from our Go Public team.
From the start, he knew how old I was.
The 14-year-old was on an Air Transat flight in August, traveling as an unaccompanied minor.
And he started caressing my arm up and down, and I was trying to lean the other way to get away from it, but he didn't stop. And then eventually he grabbed my breast.
She moved to an empty seat and says she reported in detail what happened to the flight attendant. After the plane landed, her mom says no one at the airline told her anything.
And how could they think that it was okay for a 14-year-old to have to navigate that? It shouldn't have been up to a 14-year-old girl to figure it out. It's unacceptable.
The girl's mom complained to the airline, and Air Transat says it did a thorough internal investigation that determined the girl said nothing about a sexual assault on the flight. The 14-year-old says that's not true. Here's the thing, there is no evidence that thorough investigation included speaking with anyone but airline staff, not the girl or any other passengers, to see what they may have seen or heard. Air Transat wouldn't provide a copy of its investigation report to the girl's mom or Go Public. It also won't say how many times sexual assault is reported on flights or provide its relevant policies and procedures. The U.S. Transportation Department studied in-flight sexual misconduct and made recommendations on how airlines can prevent and deal with the issue there. Transport Canada won't say if it plans to do anything similar here. Canadian lawyer and law professor Janine Benedict, who researches sexual violence against women, says that's not good enough.
It seems to me Canada should learn from that and build on it and not fool ourselves into thinking that it's not happening here.
After Go Public inquiries, Air Transat says it's now looking at possible changes to how it handles unaccompanied minors. Rosa Marcatelli, CBC News, Calgary.
The Northwest Territories' general election campaign officially began today. So far, more than 30 people have told CBC about their intentions to run, and at least one person has announced in every riding. To tell us more about the first day of the campaign, we're joined now by Sydney Cohen. So Sydney, this has literally just begun, but what do we know about the field of candidates so far?
Right, so today was the first day candidates could file nomination papers and officially declare their candidacy for one of the 19 seats in the Legislative Assembly. It also means that NWT residents will start seeing campaign signs going up. As of this afternoon, CBC had confirmed that 37 people plan to run. Of those, 13 are incumbents. NWT residents have until 2 p.m. on Friday to file nomination papers if they want to run, and that just means that more people are sure to announce or pull out in the coming days.
And I saw some of those campaign signs going up already, so they're already popping up, at least in Yellowknife. All of this, though, comes on the heels of a pretty extraordinary summer in the Northwest Territories, the wildfire situation. How do you think those wildfires and the emergencies will affect this campaign?
Well, we've already seen the effect of those wildfires and the evacuations because the election was delayed by 6 weeks. But that aside, it's no question that those choosing to run are doing so at an exceptional moment in the Territory's history. This summer's wildfires forced about 2/3 of the NWT population to flee their communities, and fighting those fires and funding the evacuations is expected to cost the government around $150 million. So that's a big financial hit. The last finance minister said those costs will pretty much drain the Territory's estimated operating surplus. The federal government has promised to put up some disaster assistance cash, but we don't know when or how much. So there's no doubt that the next batch of elected MLAs will have to deal with the fallout, and candidates should be ready with answers to questions about the government's wildfire response.
Election Day is November the 14th, but people don't have to wait until that day to cast their ballots. What can you tell us about early voting, Sydney?
So there's a number of ways people can vote in this year's election. Residents who can't get to their polling station can vote at a mobile poll. Elections NWT says the mobile poll is a good option for people with mobility issues because the ballot box actually goes to them. Residents can also vote in the office of the returning officer in their riding or at a returning office in a hub community. So that would be Yellowknife, Hay River, Fort Smith, or Inuvik. People can vote at a returning office from October 24th to November 11th. There's also going to be advance polls held in communities between November 7th and 10th. And there are two kinds of absentee ballots this year. There's the traditional mail-in ballot and the online ballot. Now, online voting was first used in the NWT in the 2019 territorial election, and the NWT is actually still the only jurisdiction in Canada to offer it as a voting option in a territorial or provincial election. Elections NWT says residents who apply to vote online will get an email login for a secure voting platform, and they can start casting their vote there on October 24th.
Okay, thanks for rounding this all up for us, Sydney.
Thank you.
With the election period now officially underway, we wanted to know what issues voters think the candidates should be focusing on. Here's what we heard in Yellowknife today.
Most important issues, housing, homeless population, affordability, cost of living.
I think on the food prices, they're getting like too high, it's just too much.
Have a more planned procedure for any, like this past evacuation, more planning.
And we're eager to hear much more from you about this election. What are your thoughts? What's a territorial issue that matters to you? And what can be done to make the NWT a better place to live? We want to hear all of that from you, and you can send us your ideas and your thoughts on our website. Visit cbc.ca/north.
Things are too good, just scared that things will be taken away.
Think of the education they will receive.
You're going to see things you never forget.
There is no way that we are going to give up when we are threatened with cultural genocide.
Sometimes it's the beautiful things that hurt the most to remember.
You promised me that you won't look back. You are our tomorrow.
A lot happens overnight.
Hey, good morning, Heather.
Hey, good morning. How are you today? We're ready to go when you need to know. Good morning. I'm Heather Hiscox. We begin with breaking news, what we're learning from.
Like you see from behind us here, how big the fire is.
Your connection goes back decades.
You're giving me the hard questions.
Yep. The heroes and the helpers.
That is what we're here for.
I found Canadians. I'm Heather Hiscox. Start your day with us on CBC Morning Live.
I am in the best place in the entire world right now.
Oh, I always play with fire.
This is an epic fail.
I'm obsessed with these.
I am utterly speechless.
Driving impaired destroys lives. A message from Mad Canada.
Keeping secrets, are you?
No, sir.
It's like any man. On the run.
Whatever you're gonna do, you need to do it now.
Hang on, guys. I'm sure you'll get some action, promise?
We were failed by history.
It's really important that we own our stories.
Welcome back. In Whitehorse, the Yukon Advisory Committee on Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women, Girls, and Two-Spirit Plus people is holding its second accountability forum. Speakers will address accountability, healing, and the role of media in the context of Indigenous representation. The CBC's Virginie Anne has that story.
The opening remarks from several leaders set the tone for the two-day forum. Conversation will be difficult but crucial in order to continue the work. Last June, the Advisory Committee released an implementation plan, the first to be introduced across Canada. It outlined the priority actions to provide a safe environment for Indigenous women and girls. Now, the forum is all about hearing from leaders and community members about the progress that's been made.
Sometimes people just need that opportunity to have a voice, right? And I think this forum allows that in a very safe and sacred way, but also I think there is the intent that we need to move forward as well, right? In regards to what we're doing. We can't tolerate this anymore, and we've tolerated a lot of the abuse, and we can blame government for as long as we want. We can blame alcohol, but these are going to be a part of us, part of our lives forever.
Earlier today, Premier Ranch Pillay announced at the forum that the Missing Persons Act and regulation came into effect. The RCMP can now request better access to personal records that are needed to locate a missing person. Search warrants can now also be issued by the court if the missing person is a minor or a vulnerable person deemed in danger.
It's really about being able to be very quick in the strategies that can be used to find an individual that is missing. So being able to access phone records, being able to access banking records in a very short period of time so that you have the tools available to you in a very agile manner to ensure that you can look for individuals quickly and effectively.
The forum will serve to create a report that highlights the work being done across the Yukon, but also to show where the gaps are. Virginie Anne, CBC News, Whitehorse.
Staying in Whitehorse, where the Yukon Anti-Poverty Coalition kicked off the Poverty and Homelessness Action Week today. The aim is to end poverty in the Yukon by coordinating community involvement, focusing on food, income, housing, and service access.
As inflation rises, as we see affordability issues becoming more and more acute, that we are truly digging in and working together as a community with that goal in mind, and not digging into whose fault it is that something hasn't happened, but digging into solutions.
The 18th annual event will focus on food security, the Landlord and Tenant Act, and a donation campaign. The public is welcome to share personal experiences as well as pitches to combat related issues. Action Week runs until Friday. More and more Canadians are struggling to put healthy food on the table, and multi-season greenhouses could help. Now, a former resident of the NWT is leading an organization in Alberta that's using them to grow food for people in need. As Dan McGarvey shows us, the goal is to build these greenhouses across the country.
Some cucumbers, you can still see quite a bit are growing in here, which is why we haven't pulled everything out yet.
Executive Director of Green Igloo, Reagan Solotki, checks on produce in a research greenhouse in her backyard. She says her experience in the north of working out how to grow produce year-round is now helping Albertans.
Coming from Inuvik in the Northwest Territories, my image of Alberta is there's so many farms, this is the land of milk and honey. Well, it's not. There's still people that are struggling.
Her organisation helps communities and food banks set up greenhouses and geodesic growing domes with heating and cooling systems.
We actually have to insulate it. So we use Reflectech insulation, which is also involved in the geodesic dome, which will help when the sun comes in to heat up. And we use all sorts of thermal mass measures to try to limit the electrical input that we have to use.
Across town, tucked away behind Red Deer's food bank, Mitch Thompson says their 26-foot wide dome built there this summer is already making a difference.
Domes like this, where you can grow food 12 months of the year, have been proven in our Arctic areas. So being able to do that here in Red Deer just makes sense. It allows us to grow tomatoes and peppers, cucumbers and zucchini, all to help support the people that we serve and ensure they have something fresh to eat all year round.
I'm going to pick some tomatoes.
Green Igloo's also helping the food bank set up a new hydroponic sea can growing system, as well as hosting a food security forum in the city later this month. Dan McGarvey, CBC News, Red Deer.
A Nunavik public health researcher is calling for the world to act against the chemical pollutants accumulating in the Arctic. Lucy Gray is with the Nunavik Health Board. She gave a presentation this week in Rome at the International Persistent Organic Pollutants Review Committee. She says while levels of mercury and PCBs in the Arctic are going down, levels of what are called forever chemicals like PFAS are on the rise. She says the toxic substances originate in the south but end up contaminating Nunavik's local food like seal, beluga, and fish.
All of these contaminants are used in the rest of the world, and they make their way up to the Arctic and stay in the Arctic. So they don't respect any borders.
Gray says a global approach is the only way to solve the problem. It's time once again to start thinking about getting your flu and COVID-19 booster shots. Nunavut's health minister says the newest COVID boosters have arrived in the territory. The boosters are monovalent, which means they're designed to only target a descendant of the Omicron variant. It comes as Canada heads into another respiratory virus season, including increased cases of COVID-19.
In terms of the rollout, that'll be announced very soon across the territory, so Nunavut should keep their ears open for information pertaining to availability in their community.
Maine is encouraging all residents to get their booster shot when it becomes available. He says it helps protect the person who gets the shot as well as those around them. In the NWT, the Health Authority has released a schedule for vaccine clinics on its website. In some communities, like Fort Simpson, shots are already available. In others, vaccine clinics are set to start later this month. Details about when and where clinics will be can be found on the NTHSSA website. And in the Yukon, appointments can be booked online through the Government of Yukon website or through a number of local pharmacies. Millions of women in Canada experience menopause, but many people aren't talking about that reality, especially in the workplace. A new report suggests a lack of support for employees is taking a huge economic toll. Nisha Patel has the story.
When Darlene Mulcahy hit menopause, it was tough to work.
I was experiencing an inability to focus or concentrate. I couldn't retain information.
Her male manager told her he didn't know how to help.
I found myself feeling very alone and without any support at work. So eventually I had to take a leave of absence.
Most women reach menopause between ages 45 and 55. That means 2 million women in Canada's workforce could be coping with symptoms. Many end up taking time off or quitting altogether, often at the height of their career.
So when women should be earning the most, they're actually stepping back.
There's a cost to that. $3.5 billion in missed work days, lower productivity, and lost income, according to a new report by the Menopause Foundation of Canada.
It's like we're past our prime.
President Janet Coe is calling on businesses to be more menopause inclusive.
We don't think this is a heavy lift for employers. We think that having conversation and breaking the taboo is one of the most important things that can be done.
In a bid to attract and retain female employees, companies around the world like Adobe, Kellogg's, and Bank of America are starting to offer menopause-specific supports. In Canada, Sun Life is one big employer taking up the cause.
It's a solvable problem if we put some resources and momentum behind it.
The company is offering employee awareness sessions as well as benefit coverage for hormone replacement therapy, mental health supports, and flexible work.
It's going to help the career success, personal success, financial well-being, health well-being of our people.
After time off and treatment, Mulcahy is back in the office, where she launched her own menopause initiative.
So that they don't have to feel like they're struggling to find the information that they need.
Hopeful that it will keep more women in the workforce. Nisha Patel, CBC News, Toronto.
Emerging writers from the circumpolar world gathered in Iqaluit this weekend. Inuit writers, authors, and artists from Greenland, Alaska, and Canada came together to network and get a better understanding of Inuit literature. The conference was led by the Inuit Circumpolar Conference. The president of the ICC says she wants to keep tradition and culture alive through storytelling, songwriting, and art.
Our traditional stories, our cultures, how we feel in our hearts, it can be heard. They're celebrated and loved. It can also touch hearts. Inuit can tell all kinds of stories, and they're good at it, and it makes it exciting.
And finally tonight, if you're looking for some Halloween costume ideas for your dog, you don't need to look any further than Lima, Peru, which to be fair is still pretty far. But when the inspiration is this great, you gotta take a look at it. From a Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory ensemble, stylish Barbie with shades, Wednesday Addams from the Addams Family, Hollywood was definitely a big inspiration at this dog costume contest. Judges took several factors into consideration, including creativity, originality, and family involvement in the crafting of the costumes. And that is Northbeat for tonight. For news anytime, go to cbc.ca/north. Thank you for watching. I'm Megan Roberts. Have a good night, and I'll see you tomorrow.
Treaty in Cree is Naskomitoin, an oral agreement. And our agreements were always spoken. For George Spence, the core of treaty was Wichihioin, to help one another.
And so we, the commissioners...
He was there for the making of Treaty 9, where the Cree were told...
We will honor this agreement together, for as long as the sun shines and the waters flow.
Keeping secrets, are you?
No, sir.
Just like any man. Starting new.
On the run.
Whatever you're gonna do, you need to do it now.
Hang on, guys. I'm sure you'll get some action.
Promise?
Putting on that apron brings me to tears. Hey!
This is an epic fail.
Where are the pecans? I don't see the pecans. The stones.
The beetles.
I detest.
What?
We were failed by history. Look where we are under that legacy.
It's really important that we...
Just remain calm. Grab the head.
You grab the head. Have you ever dealt with something like this before?
No.
Delegate! It's on me now!
Animal Control. Watch all episodes now.
We have an incredible show lined up for you tonight. Wow!
A lot happens overnight.
Hey, good morning, Heather.
Hey, good morning. How are you today? We're ready to go when you need to know. Good morning. I'm Heather Hiscox. We begin with breaking news, what we're learning from it.
Like you see from behind us here, how big the fire is.
Your connection goes back decades.
You're giving me the hard questions.
Yep. The heroes and the helpers.
That is what we're here for.
I found Canadians. I'm Heather Hiscox. Start your day with us on CBC Morning Live.